Hello, I'm Dan Ridsdale, Head of Technology at Edison, and today I'm joined by Stuart Green, Chief Executive Officer of Zoo Digital. Zoo Digital are a tech-enabled provider of services and software to the entertainment industry. Stuart, many thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Can you just start by introducing Zoo Digital to our audience?
Sure. Well, as you said, we're a tech-enabled provider of services to the entertainment industry. And what we do for clients who are streaming services and big producers of TV content and feature films is that we take their finished programs, so we don't get involved in making the programs, but we do what's necessary to go from that point to get them delivered on streaming services and distributed globally. And a big part of that is media localization, adapting them to different languages through subtitling and dubbing. But there's also actually quite a lot of technical things that we do as well to make sure that things are in the right format and they play properly and without any glitches or so.
And turning towards artificial intelligence, I guess the localization, the translation arena in which we're very strong, has been an area in which artificial intelligence is expected to play very strongly. Now, you've just published a white paper on the subject. Can you talk through the key findings of that white paper?
Sure. Well, so maybe I should just clarify a couple of things first before I get to that. You correctly use the word localization, and it's I think people think of localization as being like translation. Translation is just putting words into a different language, whereas localization is making those words resonate, to an audience in a different country, living in a different culture, with different, expectations and so on. And it's a much bigger deal. There's much more to it, and a key thing that we do, of course, is that the materials that we are localizing are things that people are saying. And that actually sets the media localization segment on which we're focused apart from other forms of localization. So, if you're dealing with documents, user manuals, annual reports and so on, then it's a very different requirement. Speech it's very nuanced, it's very idiomatic and so on. So when it comes to entertainment content, where of course the message and being entertaining is what it's all about, you need to do that in a very careful way, sensitive to the audience that you're dealing with, and consequently, it's an area where AI will certainly play a part, and it's indeed already playing a big part, but it has to be used, with being very mindful of its strengths and its weaknesses. And I think, as you say, AI has been applied to localization for many years, and it works great for written documentation. But in our world, there are the specific challenges and nuances in what we deal with mean that you have to be very careful about how you go about using it.
Great, thanks. And can you elaborate on that? And in your white paper, you give, I guess, some examples of how our machine-generated translation can go wrong. But in specifically with regards to your premium customer base, what are they asking for? And are there any other particular regulatory reasons why you adopt the approach that you do?
Okay, so when we think about entertainment and entertainment content, of course, it's a very broad spectrum. At one extreme, you've got studios that are spending tens or maybe hundreds of millions of dollars making a TV show or a feature film. And at the other extreme, you've got YouTube creators at home for next to nothing making a stream that lots of people want to watch. So across that very broad spectrum, there are very different requirements of localization. And I should clarify that Zoo is very much focused on the former end of that spectrum that I described. So our clients are spending lots of money. It's very important to them that to get the best return on their investment in making those programs, they can reach with them the biggest audience possible, and that of course means delivering that content into lots of different locations, different to different countries where people speak different languages and so on. So across that spectrum, certainly at the YouTube creator end, certainly automated approaches like some of the AI systems are ideally suited and work incredibly well. At the end of the market that we're primarily focused on, they fall short as a sort of a fully automated approach, and that's because of the nuances that I've alluded to already. But what our customers really value the most is the quality and authenticity of the work we do. it has to be, that experience to someone watching an American show in Korea has to be just as good. The characters have got to be just as believable. It's got to be just as enthralling and engaging as the English version is to the audience in North America. And to do that very much requires the human touch.
Interesting. And I guess when people talk about disrupting supply chains, disrupting workflows, people automatically nowadays seem to say artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But obviously you provide that role to your customers as well. Can you talk through your sort of cloud dubbing platform and how that helps your clients with their workflows?
Yeah. Well, as you correctly characterised, as we are a tech-enabled provider, so everything that we do is done using proprietary cloud-based software that we have developed ourselves that provides us with a whole range of different advantages and benefits. And going back to the requirements of our customers, as I say, quality is a key part of that. So, we design our process to make sure that we get the very highest quality. A second really important requirement of our customers, and this is increasingly the case as now streaming has really taken over the world of entertainment, is time to market. Once they've made a show, they need to get it out there to global audiences as quickly as possible. So reducing the time it takes from taking that finished program to producing localized versions in 40, 50 different languages, they want to condense that as quickly as possible. And so anything that can be done to reduce that elapsed time clearly is advantageous to our customers. So automation has actually been a fundamental part of what we have done from the very beginning. We've been in this industry 20 plus years, and all the way along there, we've innovated to bring about change in the way that things can be done in order that things can be done more efficiently, more scalably, more quickly, and so on. So AI is another example of that. We've been building automation tools and in cloud-based platforms for many years. And you ask about our dubbing platform. Essentially, our general approach to automation is to think about, okay, so here is this process that is being worked on. Where is human labor really key to deliver the results that we need? And where actually is it quite tedious for people to do these things? And usually where that takes you to say, well, actually anything administrative and sort of process oriented, workflow, machines are really good at that. And humans, whilst they can do it, it's not so interesting. Far better to get your project managers, for example, engaged on where they can truly add value. So really focusing, for example, on where things are going wrong on projects rather than perhaps where things are going right, and let systems deal with the stuff that's going right. So that's been our general approach and philosophy. And in the case of dubbing, what we've done there is to identify opportunities to be able to virtualize certain processes and to provide a way to allow many people to collaborate without having to converge on a single location, which is essentially the way that dubbing has operated traditionally in our industry. And that brings about essentially lots of opportunities to speed things up through just being able to access people's diaries and for them to fit projects in at times that suit them and so on, without any loss of quality or authenticity of the final results that are made.
Right. So quality of product and time to market are the key sort of areas that you value proposition for your customers. But you're not AI Luddites, so I mean you do use artificial intelligence in your product. Absolutely. Can you just talk about some of the areas that you do?
Yeah, as I say, I mean we see AI and have seen AI for years. We started looking at it 10 years ago as another tool in the armory to help us do the very things that I've just been describing. It just so happens that we've been tracking it for many years, and it's only relatively recently that certain technologies we feel have got to the point where they're actually delivering value. And of course, as they have delivered value, then we have incorporated with our own platform. So we already have AI as part of some of the platforms that we use in certain areas. So for example, for transcription. So one of the first things that you do, or we do when we receive a program from a customer, is to make sure we have captured a very accurate transcription of what has been said in that program, by whom each utterance has been spoken, to whom, in what setting, and so on. And AI, we're finding now, not and only recently, but now is a fantastic tool for us to enable that process to operate more quickly. And what that does, of course, is that we can get the starting point that we then need for the localization, days earlier than we could previously. And that again means that we can kind of condense the time. But there are other areas too where we are applying AI, and I mentioned that localization is a big part of what we do, but there are also technical things that we do as well, and certainly in those areas we could see opportunities to deploy AI. But what we're not doing is expecting for the kind of content that we deal with for AI anytime soon to be some kind of turnkey solution for automating the production of certainly dub soundtracks, but also subtitles for very high quality, high profile content in the entertainment industry. We believe it has a role to play, and we are using it, for example, to assist our translators and voice actors and so on, to make them more efficient in what they do, but we're not seeking to displace them, because again, as I said earlier, this is an area we think that humans do it a whole lot better than for this kind of content than AI can do for the moment.
And just to dig into that and maybe challenge you a little bit on that last point, I mean, generative artificial intelligence is moving so quickly.
Yes.
What makes you sure that the equation isn't going to change sometime in the near future?
Well, what won't change is Zoo's strategy. Our focus on innovation as a key fundamental tenet of our business and the way in which we operate. We have an internal team of fantastic software engineers and project managers and others who are innovating and developing this technology as we go. So it may well be that there are new innovations in AI and new developments that actually we identify and think, well, now we could be using this for this thing over here. And of course, where that makes sense and where it is ethical and sensible to adopt it, because those are considerations that are important to us and our industry too, then we will do that and we will transition. I guess the key message here is that if there is an organization that's likely to lead the charge on that, identifying where new technologies can be brought to bear in a very successful way, then Zoo is surely that company.
So we've recently seen the actor strikes in Hollywood, which has impacted your business. But in terms of your approach to technology and artificial intelligence, how does your platform help mitigate that risk and navigate that dynamic with your clients?
So obviously there were these disputes for both actors and writers in Hollywood, and in fact this situation is still playing out in other countries too. And you're right that AI was a key issue there, that professionals in the industry had concerns that their intellectual property rights could be exploited in an unfair way and not a legitimate way if AI was left to be used kind of in an unfettered fashion. So through those. So there was strike action and there was resolution consequently, and some guidelines were agreed between the studios and the unions that represent these professionals about what is an acceptable way in which to use this kind of technology. So from Zoo's perspective, that is we obviously respect those decisions and are totally committed to working within their frameworks that have been agreed. And they, of course, do have a bearing on the way in which writers, translators, actors, directors, and so on work in the industry. So it affects us insofar as we will respect and incorporate within our systems the safeguards needed in order to ensure that these principles can be upheld.
Can I ask about your customer base, the premium content providers, streamers, and so on? What is do you have a specific dialogue with them about the use of artificial intelligence, or are they really just focused on deliver this product? Do they have an explicit view on the use of the technology?
They do have a view on the use of the technology, and the reason for that hopefully is clear once you understand the way in which current generation of AI works, because as you know, it works by learning from pre-existing data. So you say, oh, here are examples of this particular thing. The system kind of assimilates that, finds patterns within it, and then when you ask it to do a certain thing, you can essentially apply those patterns to an output. And of course, there are lots of different areas in which AI is now being used for creating images, for creating documents, for creating videos, and so on. They're all basically adhere to that same underlying principle. But what that principle obviously hinges on is having that training data that you can use in order to be able to apply these patterns that you see. And so the question is, where does that training data come from? And what are the features of, you've probably used ChatGPT yourself, and I think a really interesting exercise for the listener is to go to ChatGPT and ask a question along the lines of, tell me a short story about a mean-spirited old man who's visited by 3 ghosts at Christmas. And unsurprisingly, you'll get a perfect précis of The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, and you kind of expect that. Interestingly, it won't mention Ebenezer Scrooge. It will replace the names, and that must, I'm assuming, be something that has been purposefully implemented by the developers of that software. So, because clearly, if it said Ebenezer Scrooge, you can say, well, okay, this is plagiarism, because. But obviously, what it's doing is to that prompt, it has found a pattern that is seen many times, because there'll be many instances of Christmas Carol on the internet, and has kind of matched those things up and produced that thing. So of course, if you were to do that, you'd say, hang on a minute, that's the love Christmas Carol, because I know that story. But what about all those things that you don't know about? ChatGPT, the version 3 of GPT, it was trained, as I understand it, on 45 terabytes of data. And to put that in perspective, that's like 1 million feet of library space of material. That's a lot of data. And in that data, who knows what's present? And clearly there will be material that is copyrighted, and there have been instances where the priests of these systems have been called to account because authors and others have identified those things. But going back to your question then, so if you were a studio, clearly if it were found to be the case that a vendor had used a system that in effect caused unintentionally some plagiarism, then that could be quite problematic. So consequently, our customers have a very keen eye on how AI is used, and very much want to be in a situation where they can stipulate, when it is used, when it can't be used, when it is used, under what circumstances, with what training data, and so on, to make sure that they are not subject to any legal challenge.
Interesting. And can I turn a little bit to the technology side of things? You've developed your cloud platform. Architecturally, as new advances in AI come along that you might be able to use, how well placed do you think you'll be able to how well placed are you to plug in new technologies into the platform because of the architectural decisions you've made?
That's a great question. I mean, the way in which we have built these platforms is in a very kind of modular fashion. They are all, we treat each sort of subject areas in its own right. So, for example, we have a platform that deals with subtitling. Is our production system for subtitling. But all of these systems, and there's another one for doing. But each of these systems, they're all interoperable. They're all sharing information amongst themselves, and as a result, they're very efficient. But what that gives us is an architecture, as you say, that makes it very easy for us to plug in different things and try things out. And of course, that is very much what we've been doing with some of the AI technologies. Just kind of plugging them in, give them to some of our operators, say, just try this out on a few projects. See what you find. Does it speed things up for you? Does it slow things down? More often than not, there are surprising outcomes when you do that. So it's not uncommon to find users coming back just and say, it actually took me longer to do that thing than after with that technology in than it did before. And some of these, it could sometimes be surprising, that why those things arise, because what's produced as a first pass, if it is close to the result that you're after, then just tweaking the result can be a very efficient way to proceed. But if it somehow it has not made allowance for some important things in the subject matter, and in the case of localization of entertainment content, that's very much the case, in as much as your source material is the script, so it's the things that people are saying, and of course machine translation is great at taking words and producing versions in different languages, but what it doesn't tell you is the context. You don't get to understand just from looking at the scripts necessarily what is the intention behind each utterance. Why is this person actually saying this? And what is the tone in which they're saying it? And what is there a hidden meaning there? Do we need to read between the lines? Is there some subtlety, some nuance, some cultural reference, some idiom, that we need to factor in. Those things are, AI is blind to those things because they're not in the reference material that's using to produce the output, nor are they in the training data. So therein lies a big challenge in AI becoming a sort of panacea in our industry, and is better suited really to helping us with very specific pieces of our process to assist humans in doing their job a whole lot quicker, more efficiently, with fewer defects.
Stuart, thank you very much. Fascinating stuff.
Thanks very much, Stu.